Ladies and gentlemen, we are approaching our final destination. The runway is clear as we prepare for landing a new life. Your captain has a special message. Please welcome back two-time Daytime Emmy Award-winning host of the Daytime Emmy Award-winning The Dr. Oz Show, Vice Chair and Professor of Surgery at Columbia University, Director of the Cardiovascular Institute and Complementary Program at New York Presbyterian Hospital, author of 7 New York Times bestsellers and 400 original publications, book chapters, and medical books. He's a world-renowned cardiothoracic surgeon performing more than 100 heart surgeries a year. Today, he has dedicated his time and talent to pilot your health and happiness. Again, Dr. Mehmet Oz.
Thank you very much. All right. I've been thinking about what I'm going to say for weeks, and I'm going to say up front that the purpose of this is not to give you information. It's to get you to change your lives. Meaningful change means meaningful change. It means transforming your life in ways that a lot of you probably haven't thought about for quite some time. So what I'm going to do today is take you through my office. This is my office. And allow you to see what it might feel like. What it might feel like if you took your health in a different direction. This is what's happening in America. We're pushing as hard as we can on that door to health, and it's not opening. It's not opening. Part of it is because we don't know the biology of what drives change in our bodies, and part of it is we're not taking the time to read those lessons. Let me give you an example. This is what a healthy human lung looks like. You see how it's pink and wide and it looks spectacular like that? You can see how fluffy it is, how airy it is. It looks like clouds. This is what a smoker's lung looks like. See the dark tar areas? You see the top where it looks like it's been eaten away by moths? That's called emphysema. Emphysema. Now think about this. When you see someone who's a smoker, when you tell them that they shouldn't smoke, you're wasting your time and you're wasting their time because they know that already. If you show it to them, which is what I try to do sometimes, at least they have that visceral awareness of why their cigarettes are actually damaging them, and they can think about it differently. This is why years ago I pledged never to operate on a smoker. You know why? Because I love them. I care about them. My only chance to stop them from smoking is before I operate on them. So on Thursdays when I'm up at New York Presbyterian Columbia operating, doing my surgeries, I think about this. I think to myself, what can I say to change your mind about something you want to do but haven't been able to do? I'm going to come back to that theme in a second. Osteoporosis, same basic concept. On the left side, you see the very thick, nice bone. On the right side, that osteoporotic bone, it's sort of worn down, it's thinned out. So how do you treat this? Well, you know, you can give medications for it, right? We have all kinds of things I can offer to you, but what works more than anything else is resistance training, right? Lifting it up. That little bit of activity, which most of us don't do after we hit our 3rd decade of life, it changes the equation dramatically. All right, let's talk about my specialty, hardening of the arteries. Now, atherosclerosis is a process where you literally deposit stuff, junk, residue. But what it really is rusting away of our insides. Now, in this picture, you see that little plaque in the big tube called the aorta. But on the right side, you have a normal big plump kidney. On the left side, it's shrunken and small. That itty-bitty kidney is dead because the blood that was going to it closed off. See that artery? It's thrombosed. It's got clot in it. The kidney was starved. There are many people in this audience right now who have lost one of their kidneys and they don't even know it because you only need one kidney to live. That's why you can donate a kidney. But when it happens to both of your kidneys, that's big problems. So how do you know what's going to happen? Let me bring this alive to you with an animation. This is what's happening in the inside of arteries all over this country. You're 18 years of age, that little yellow plaque begins to grow. 22, 23, gets larger. Slowly the plaque begins to get big. By the time you're in your 40s, it's gotten really large. And all of a sudden, well, it ruptures. One day it ruptures. Now you have this raw, open sore, this plaque inside the blood vessels. And on top of that, you start to deposit a clot, because when you have a cut in the body anywhere, you want to form a clot on it. That clot gets larger and larger and larger, and kaboom! Right there. You saw the leading cause of death in the Western world. That's what a heart attack looks like. Now, some of you might be a little scared by that image, but I don't want you to be. What I just showed you should be terribly empowering, because it turns out that that clot formed over minutes, hours, maybe a day after the plaque ruptured, which means you control that, which means who you fought with this morning and what you eat this afternoon can change the chance of you're having a heart attack tomorrow. That's why #1 time for a heart attack is Monday morning. So you're getting close. I bring that up because if it's something that was inevitably happening to you, it would happen over years and you couldn't reverse it, we wouldn't find that. But we know these things happen quickly, and it turns out you control them. Women in particular, but men too, when you change things that are going on in your life, you reverse most of the big illnesses that we're talking about. Some of them you get rid of for good, some of them you just make them a lot better. And I'm going to talk about some of those today. But don't forget this imagery, because I'm going to come back to it over and over again. Let's start off with the big risk factors. You control 70% of how well and how long you live. Think about that. 70% of it, 2/3 of it. A little bit, 1/3 genetic. But you have the ability, if you focus on 5 factors, these are the first 4. Blood pressure. Why 115 over 75? That's the optimal number. Now, a lot of you think, okay, I'm not hypertensive. If I'm not hypertensive, I'm good to go. But it turns out that hypertension, 140 over 90, is bad, but the average, which is 130 over 85, isn't good enough. What happens to the average American? We die of a heart attack. You don't want to be average. You want to be optimal. 115 over 75. Now, here's why it's important. Remember the animation I just showed you with the blood vessel closing off with the blood clot? Okay, here's how that happens. The very beginning, that little yellow plaque that I talked about, it starts because somebody punches a hole in the artery. So if I were to punch a hole in a wall back there, how would I fix that hole? I'd have to put plaster in it, right? I put high quality plaster in that hole. I get a nice pretty repair. No one can tell anything was wrong. If I put a lousy repair in there, it crackles and fizzles out and I can see the defect. What's the body's plaster? It's cholesterol. When you have cholesterol, that's not the good kind, because you're eating the wrong foods, like foods lots of fats in them, or you're overweight, whatever the reason is. You put junky cholesterol in there, you have this hole, which is therefore fixed with junky stuff, it clots, it cracks, you get that clot formation. That's what causes the problem. Now think back. Now you know why the cholesterol is a problem, but what makes the hole? The punch is the blood pressure. It's like a high-powered water pick or a garden hose or a fire hydrant that's burst. It's blasting away with hard pressure on that very delicate Teflon-like lining of the artery. That ripped away tissue's got to heal itself. That's where the plaster comes in, the cholesterol. So if you stop the hole, you never have to worry about the rest of it. That's #1. #1 risk factor of all. #1 driver of aging. If your blood pressure's high, 10 years shorter life expectancy than not. #2, cigarettes. I've talked about them, talked about the motivation a little bit. Turns out to be a very important issue because it rips away the delicate lining as well. But let's talk about how we address cigarette smoking, because I think it's a metaphor for all the other problems you may face. If the person you love is drinking too much, if they're overweight, if they're not doing the things they should do, if they're not showing up in their own lives, how do you get them to change? I would argue you don't do it by telling them they're doing the wrong thing, because they know that already. You do it by asking them one simple favor. All I want you to do is to love yourself as much as I care for you. When you phrase it that way, it's not accusative, it's not prescriptive, you're getting down to the root issue, which is the emotions of why we don't change. Can I just share something with you that Oprah taught me a long time ago, and I think it is true, and I've seen it on my show over and over again? People don't change what they do based on what they know. They change what they do based on how they feel. If we can get into the emotional reasons why people aren't doing the right thing, it changes everything. If we can go from being up here, having knowledge, to this deep visceral awareness of why it matters, people change. That's why when people around you are sick, you change, because you care about them. That's why when you talk to folks about their kids, if you talk to folks about their vision, their future, their hopes, their desires, all those take them to a different place in their life. Topic #3, physical activity. You don't have to run triathlons. I'm talking about 30 minutes of basic activity a day. When we go around the world and look where people live the longest, they have different types of social structures, they eat different kinds of foods, but guess what? In every one of these places that people live a long time in, they have daily, vigorous physical activity. What kills Americans is not just cancer and heart disease and all those things. Listen, if I got rid of all the cancer in New York, Do you know how much longer we would live? On average, 2.8 years. I mean, I'd love to get rid of all cancer, but what kills us ultimately is we get frail. We're so frail, we can't get treated for the cancer. We can't weather the storm of the illness, so we get culled from the herd. That's why it's so important for us to focus in on avoiding the frailty. Now, especially for women, you hit that 4th decade of life, and you don't think you need that muscle mass. It's vitally important if you want to stay trim and fit and lose weight, but it's also important just for endurance, for longevity. And I'm not talking about running. I'm talking about doing activities with your muscles that build a little bit more of them, the kind of things you've been hearing about today. 4th, you know about dieting. We've talked about it today, but I'm going to change the focus. I want you to eat a diet you love. If it's not easy to love, you're not going to stay on it. And please write this down if you're taking notes. What does prevention mean? Prevention fundamentally is about making it easy to do the right thing. If you make it easy to do the right thing, you'll do it. If you create traps for yourself to fall, you're going to fall. So when you don't make the decisions in the supermarket and you force yourself to make them in the home because you brought stuff into your house you didn't want to have, it makes it difficult for yourself. It's like chumming the waters. Of course you can't do it. That's why families have to do this together. That's why we invest so much effort into healthcare, why it's so vitally important to us. Now, the 5th topic is one that all of us desire. And it's not on here for a reason because I'm going to show you how to do it. It's about stress, but it's not about getting rid of stress. It's about having a new insight about how to cope with it. So I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. Just sit right there, put your hands to your side. I want you to put your right hand on your belly. We can put the house lights up a tiny bit, all right? And I want you to take a deep breath. I want you all to do it. Take a deep breath. All right, and then let go. All right. Almost everybody that I can see did it wrong. When you take a deep breath, you've got to understand the anatomy of what I'm talking about. So I'm going to play something for you. It's a little video, and then we're going to take that deep breath again. So pay attention to this. This isn't a video of what your body wants to do. You can put the video on. There we are. So if you look at what's going on, we take a deep breath. That orange muscle, the diaphragm, it comes down as you inhale, so your belly goes out. As you exhale, belly comes in, diaphragm up, pushes the lung out of the way. Muscle comes down, belly comes out, you inhale. It's the opposite of what most of you do. This belly breathing is so fundamentally important to how we cope with stress that I'm going to take 1 minute and just go over it with you again. Okay? And it's all about this video. Remember, exhale, stomach out, the diaphragm down. Okay, sit back again. Right hand on your belly. The other right hand. There you are. Good. All right. Now, take a deep breath in. On 4, I'm going to ask you to push your belly button out. I'm going to go to 8, and you're going to exhale and relax the belly button and take it back towards the spine. Ready? 1, inhale. 2, push your right hand out. 3, 4, feel a little aching above your hand. Now relax your stomach. 5, 6. Now suck your belly button back towards your spine. 7, 8. Inhale again. 1, 2. Push your belly out. Exaggerate it. 3, 4. A little aching above it. Now relax the stomach. 5, 6. Suck your belly button again towards your spine. Your hand should go way in towards your spine. 7, 8. Very nicely done. Very nicely done. Now, if you're watching a child sleep at night, you will see them do it naturally. If you watch a singer, they'll do it. A professional athlete before a shot, they'll do it. It happens instinctively when you have to do it or someone teaches you. But you know what? We forget it. The next time you're in a difficult situation, you want to reach across and strangle the guy. But instead, that's okay, JB. I'm good with that. And that's how you'll end up coping and changing. And it's a subtle little thing, but I found it hugely effective in my own life. I tell you, before the shows I do it, when I'm in the operating room, when I'm having a difficult stitch to put on a heart that's beating and there's blood loss that I don't want to see, deep breath, focus, and do it. Hugely effective. It is the foundation of so many different religious and spiritual practices, foundation of yoga. Think about it. It's a simple little takeaway from today's activities. All right, now let's get back into change. Let me drive this point home with a very concrete example. I'm going to talk to you about something that it is the #1 thing you ask me about on my show, the #1 topic, and it is weight. This famous sculpture that many of you recognize obviously did not quite turn out this way originally. I've modified it. But there's some fundamental disconnects that we have about why we're overweight. And I got to say, ultimately it comes down to control. Not just self-control, just understanding control. Your lives are out of control. Our lives sometimes are driven by things that we don't understand. We want our kids to talk to us. They don't often show up emotionally for us. We're having issues with our spouse. Our parents are a problem. All these things happen. And you don't feel like you have any control over all that. So you turn to the one thing that you do have control over, the fork at the end of your arm. And you use it, right? And we do it over and over and over again. So I'm going to take a two-tiered approach to this. I want to talk a little bit about the biology of blubber, and then I want to talk a little bit about the emotions that sometimes drive us in the wrong direction. Because if you can understand why we do this wrong, you'll probably unravel many of the other assumptions you've made about yourself. And I want you to challenge those assumptions today. I want you to leave the Radio City Music Hall challenging what you have assumed needed to happen in your life. By altering that a little bit, you're going to nudge yourself in the right direction. Okay, step number one, the biology of blubber. We tested all kinds of people.
Are you ready? I guess.
From all different places.
Pennsylvania, California, North Carolina.
And all walks of life. Come on up.
I'm Bob Green.
Jared.
You're having your tests done today,
Yes.
so...
I was supposed to have it done for a while because I drink a lot of water. I'm always thirsty. You can never cure the thirst.
37-year-old Jared had never been tested for diabetes before.
This is Jared.
Hey Jared, how are you?
Good.
You know, when they call the doctor over, that's not good news.
While that runs, I'm going to tell you that number's supposed to be under 6. The amount of sugar that's traveling around in your blood cells needs to be under that number. That's what it should be for all of us. Your number is 12.8.
Wow.
12.8 worries me a lot. That's more than twice what's tolerable.
Yeah. That's what I do about it.
What do I do about it? He asked the all-important question, what do I do about it? Think about this. He was urinating all the time. He was thirsty all the time. He felt tired. Those are the classic things you'll think about with diabetes. He has, this young man, who's done very well since the show, an ailment that has become an epidemic, not just in this country, but across the globe. 1 in 3 Americans has diabetes or pre-diabetes. We're talking about a problem that will afflict probably half of the girls and boys born in this country who are of Latino origin, at least 40% of black little boys and girls, and a third of white boys and girls in their lifetime. I mean, these numbers are massive, the actual diabetic numbers. And we are mortgaging our future if you're not dealing with this in a serious fashion. So when you recognize that, then it comes down to one fundamental issue. If I have my, there we are. That it's not just about the meds you take, but the risk factors you adjust. This is the ultimate factor that I want to focus in on. The ideal weight is not the key number. The ideal waist size is the key number. You want your height divided by 2 to always be a number bigger than your waist size. Does that make sense? So I'm 6 foot 1 inches tall. 6 times 12 is 72 inches plus 1, 73 inches. Divide that in half is 36.5 inches. That's the goal. If you can get to 36.5 inches or lower with your waist size, the odds of you having diabetes and all the other problems that we talk about with big bellies go away. But let me show you why that's so important. This is an animation. Can I see one other point, please? You got to measure it. Why? Guys over the age of 40 never buy a new belt size. They just slip the belt down over the fat, right? And they walk around like this, right? And you know you're out there, right? You walk back like this. I got a 32 belt, right? So you actually got to get the measuring tape, and I carry them around in my pockets and measure people. I'm going to be outside measuring people after this program. So once you do that, you'll understand why that equation is so important. It works for men and women and kids. So here's the animation that'll bring it alive. That yellow pad is the belly fat, the omentum. Get rid of that. Inside your body, you had lunch a few hours ago. Your liver's the big orange thing. The green thing's your gallbladder. The food in your stomach is being squeezed down into the small intestines. That food wraps around the small intestines and it gets absorbed through the wall of the small intestines. And as it does that, those nutrients begin to get sucked across the wall. If you eat the good foods that we talk about, that you've heard about today, they go up through that big portal vein, they go to the liver, your liver digests it. It turns it into what you want it to be. If you need a little bit of protein, it builds protein, whatever you need. If you eat the wrong kinds of foods, it turns your liver to foie gras, the fat. 20% of Americans have this in their liver, fatty livers, deposited because we've got big bellies. And then when you have those big bellies, it gets ponderously large. It stretches way across as it fills your waistline. That belly fat does three things. It puts pressure on your kidneys, and your kidneys regulate your blood pressure. So when you have a big belly, it drives up that high blood pressure number that I spoke of earlier. Number two, it poisons the liver, like I just showed, and it forces the liver to make more of that toxic, lousy LDL cholesterol. And thirdly, it blocks the ability of insulin to work, so you get diabetes, the problem Jared had in that video. Belly fat alone does that. So, what do you do about it? I'm gonna give you two tips. Two tips and then one little philosophical point and we're out of here. Tip number one, there's something called the ileal brake. It actually slows down the movement of food through your intestines, and by stopping it down, the food doesn't go any further. But you gotta turn it on, and fiber turns it on. Dr. Rose spoke about this. This is why fiber is so important as part of your life, and you just do the math right now. If you're not getting 25 grams of fiber, which is twice what you normally get, you're losing an opportunity to take advantage of the biology of blubber. Next up, just follow my little rule on this. Try it out for a week. 30-minute rule with nuts. I keep nuts in my pocket next to the tape measure. The nuts in my office, in my pocket, the studio, wherever I may be. Half an hour before a meal, I throw a handful in my mouth. Why do I do that? It takes 30 minutes for the hormones governing hunger to go away. Well, guess what? In 30 minutes, you've had 3 meals. Well, like you're like me, certainly I do. So what I want you to do is 30 minutes ahead of time, get those nuts in your mouth and turn off that chemistry. Turn off the stomach's desire to overeat. So when you sit down for the meal, you eat what you're supposed to eat, not what your brain and your body are forcing you to eat. That's how people who are thin stay thin. They automate their lives. They make it easy to do the right thing, so guess what? They end up being thin. Thin people think heavy people are lazy, and lazy people think thin people are lucky. Neither's true, right? It's in the middle where the truth exists. All right. My one plea to all of you, I love you dearly. You've taken your afternoon to become an army that can go out there and convince people that they can control their destiny. Don't knock yourselves down on this stuff. You know, we all make mistakes. The next time you fall off the tracks because you didn't do the right thing with your cigarettes or your food or whatever other thing you want to change in your life, think about the GPS system, right? When you're driving in your car, when you're coming down here, you make a wrong turn, what do? Your GPS doesn't berate you, it doesn't beat you up. Your GPS says at the next authorized moment, make a U-turn. What's the big deal? Right? And that ends up being exactly what we need to do for ourselves. Smart living, smart dieting is not a wind sprint, it's a marathon. Think about it that way. And finally, the way you'll know you've succeeded is when you have automated your life. You ought to probably eat the same darn breakfast every morning. I don't care if it's boring. You should not reinvent the wheel every day. The fewer decisions you make, the more successful you're going to be. And when you forget that you're on a new program, when it's not even in your mindset, that's when you know you've succeeded. So I want you to take tips that we've given you all afternoon long, make a 2-week plan out of that, and try it for those 2 weeks, and then train your autopilot to take you in that direction. And if you do it, you've achieved the final goal that I have. Because I know you're deeply caring, passionate people. If you give your heart a reason to keep beating, it will. I thank you very much for being here today. I'm now going to invite all the presenters to come back and join me again. They've done a wonderful job. I also want to give a shout out to Steve Oates, who actually put a lot of this together. He brought us together, we saw it and brought healthcare into it and allowed this event for all of you. So thanks to Steve. If I can bring the other presenters out, I'm going to ask them for one final bit of advice. And as they make their way to the stadium, please applaud them as well. There they are. There they are. All right, it is rare to have a brain trust like this on one stage. I'm indebted to all of you. I truly want to acknowledge how spectacular it has been to write notes myself, and I know many of you as well. So I've asked each of them to come back and visit us, except for Bill Shatner, who's still coughing backstage. I've asked them to come back with their final advice. You know, it's what you know the most about, what you care the most about, what are you most passionate about that we want you to understand. It's our final little note. These I want you to take home with you tonight. Dr. Bruce.
So one thing I want everybody to remember is that nobody out there has a broken sleeper, okay? Everybody can and will be able to have a good night's sleep, because remember, everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
Okay, so I'm sure you're all very excited and you're going to run out of the building and tell everybody about your experience here and change the way you live and eat differently and sleep differently and get rid of all the bad things in your house today. What I'm concerned about is what you're going to do tomorrow and next week. And how are you going to carry today's enthusiasm and energy and passion into the rest of your lives? So my advice for you today would be to pick one thing that you think could really be powerful, and next Saturday, write it down, make sure you remember it, and start it, and remember it every Saturday for the rest of the year, because this is something that needs to be sustained.
Dr. Rowe.
I just want you to know that you are worth it. No matter what anyone has ever said to you, what the past has been, what you perceive the future to be, you are worth it. You are worth the effort that you put into yourself for your life. And the process of living healthy is just that. It is a process, one in which you'll be involved for the rest of your life. It's not how you start out, it's how you end up.
Remember, beauty is from the inside out. Put out the fire for health and beauty. Thank you.
Here's the prescription. It'll change your life. 30 days. It's so easy. Tonight, when you go to bed, look into the mirror, into your own eyes, and say, I love you. I really love you. By day 20, your life will be changed. By day 30, you will absolutely believe that you are worthy of love.
I just want to let you all know that you cannot depend on the government regulations or the manufacturers to protect you. Ignorance is not an excuse. With the internet, with the information out there, it's your responsibility to educate yourself and empower yourself so you can make the best decisions for yourself and your family.
After having grown zillions of cells, human cells, in the laboratory over several decades, I've come to know that healthy nutrition is the single most important thing you can do to keep your cells and body healthy and free from degenerative disease. The cell is the fundamental unit of life. Starve it, injure it, or poison it, and the resulting damage causes degeneration and disease in the body. Nurture it, protect it, and feed it with the nutrients that it needs, and it will repair itself, yielding health and longevity. May you love life and live it to its fullest in happiness and health. Thank you.
All right. So I'm going to do one little exercise here. I'm going to ask our expert panelists to get personal. And I'm going to ask each of them to give you the one thing in our own personal lives we do that we think is the most important for health that you can adopt as well. So I'm going to start off, and then we'll go back down this line. So I'll tell you something that I do every single morning. If you want to follow along with me, I put a little video of what I do on DrOz.com. And by the way, today's the last day to sign up for Transformation Nation. We're trying to give $1 million away, and we're going to do it. It's a big vote off in the spring. Many of you are already part of Transformation Nation, but go to DrOz.com, sign up. It's free. We've got a wonderful summary of a lot of things we've talked about today, and we're going to give away $1 million in May, so be part of the party. At worst, you'll be healthier for trying. But in the meantime, on that same location, I have a 7-minute video of a little exercise I do every single morning when I get up. I want you to think about it. It's 7 minutes long because, frankly, even I have problems in the morning just getting out of my bed and getting going. And so I get up and I think to myself, you know what? If I can just do this activity, by the time I start, I'm almost done. That's why it's got to be short. So quick, you can't make any excuse to get out of it. And frankly, you got to challenge yourself with one big assumption. Please have a seat for 1 second. I want you to challenge yourself to think to yourself, is your life so disorganized you can't carve out 7 minutes? Because I bet you'll have to answer that you can always make 7 minutes. It's basically a little bit of yoga, a little football, calisthenics, simple stuff. You won't get too out of breath. You do it any pace you want to do, and I think it'll change your life, because at the rest of the day, when everyone else is slumping around like this, you're going to know that you already did your little workout. And that 7 minutes is all you have to do to just crack the code for getting physical activity. Okay, Dr. Bruce.
I would say the one thing that I do is I do not use the snooze button. on my alarm. Actually, I haven't used an alarm clock in over 20 years because I wake up because I go to bed at the right time. So the thing I could recommend to everybody out there is if you use the snooze, don't.
The one thing that I've done since I was 15, and I won't tell you how long that makes it, is to eat a plant-based diet. I've been a vegetarian for a very long time. I think that for many reasons it keeps toxins out of my body, not the toxins that are in my home, but it is also a conscious choice to try and improve our environment, because I do think that the way that we farm animals is one of the biggest threats to global sustainability.
The one thing I do every morning is I pray and meditate. In fact, I do it twice a day actively because my intention is to be in touch and be led by my spirit rather than my ego.
When I wake up in the morning, I give myself an extra 5 minutes for meditation. And that can change the levels of your cortisol for the rest of the day. And we had enough to say about that earlier.
When I wake up in the morning, I remember my dreams, I write them down, and then I open the funnel over my head to divine love, a form of meditation, bring that into my head and my thymus and throughout my entire body, and I'm connected for the rest of the day.
What I keep in mind is moderation, baby steps. If you go extreme, you'll fail and you'll stop. So take those little steps and make progress over time and keep on going.
Of the hundreds of things that we put in the book that I would advise you on, let me pick one of the simplest things, simple things for you to do to protect your body. Drink only purified water. There are 60,000 man-made chemicals in this world today, and most of them are in our water supply. Don't put those things in your body. We only test for some 91 elements, and you don't want any of those things in your body. And we know we need to drink lots of water. The more water we drink, if it's polluted, is having us accumulate more toxics in our body. Purify your water. Drink just distilled water, or easiest yet, reverse osmosis treated water. Do it today. Do it tomorrow. Get set up to do it. Put it under your sink, a small unit under your sink, or you can RO your whole home, but only drink and cook with purified water. Your body will be thankful for it.
Thank you very much. I want to thank the Wences for helping to underwrite the entire day, and all my wonderful colleagues for joining us to talk a little bit about the things that I think will hopefully change the way you think about your own bodies. I want to especially thank them for being my co-pilots today, and the wonderful team at USANA for helping organize the creative brilliance behind this program. I'd like to invite Step and Richie to come out and join us. Step Stewart, wonderful dancing, and Richie, who kept everyone hopping, does all the warm-ups for our show. I hope you've enjoyed this trip. But remember, this is only the first leg of our world. It's only the first leg of our world when we talk about this wellness tour that we're going on. Your vacation from an unhealthy life doesn't have to be a problem. You can make it a permanent change towards where you want to be. I want to thank you very much for making this Health and Happiness Summit a destination you can go to, stay at, and enjoy for the rest of your life. I'm going to ask you one favor. I want you to call 3 people that you care about when you go home today and tell them the most important thing you learned today. Will you all do that? All right. I love you all dearly. Good night.
Let's get crazy. Let's be